Good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news this Sunday morning, as Manchester United must now move quick with only a week to go to the start of the Premier League, well, the Community Shield, but we're not even 2 weeks away from Fulham. It's a week on Friday, so I can't do the maths. 13 days, 12 days? We've got to move quickly. We've got an update on Ligt from Bayern Munich sporting director. We've also got an update from Erik ten Hag on what he has said about transfers after the game as well. But you know what? I suppose the question is, what's your thoughts this morning? What is your thoughts on Manchester United at the moment? Because I think there is reason to be concerned, but I think there is also reason to be... look, you can over-egg the pudding. You can be a little bit too negative. I mean, I did the watch-along last night and some of the worrying comments were stuff about, I can see Ten Hag sacked by Christmas and Ruud's going to be the next manager and it's the same old shit. And I'm like, did it ever really go away then? Did anybody really actually, realise what we're trying to do this summer? And look at the, massive amount of change that's happening under INEOS and expect Rome to be built in a day? And secondary to that, we haven't got a lot of players that are going to be part of our first team, with the likes of Dalot, Martinez, Luke Shaw, Kobe Mainoo, Bruno Fernandes, Garnacho. There are so many players that, will be part of that, not to mention Yoro, Xerxes and Rasmus as well. So we have got a lot of change and hopefully more signings to come. But we do need more to come in. And this is what Erik ten Hag had to say about transfers. He says it's always difficult to say, but we hope and we're always looking. We've seen this new leadership team is really eager to do business and to make deals. They're on it and God, I can't read this morning. They're on it, and if the timing is there and the opportunities are there, I don't know. I can't say at this moment, but I'm sure when they are there, they will go forward. So look, I think Erik ten Hag was asked a very direct question from Beth in the mixed arena after the game a few hours ago, and was asked about the centre-back situation and whether Manchester United need to bring in a centre-back. And he said, look, and he played a very political answer, because if you say I desperately need this, then obviously that doesn't help in negotiations. But he says we've got good options in the centre-back position. Harry Maguire was a precaution not playing. Johnny Evans was ill and we had to take him off at half-time. Martinez is coming back, a Copa America winner who played all the games there. So I think he's in good form. We've got options and good options in the centre-half positions. But I think that is where I would come in before we talk about what's been said about De Ligt. I think that what I would say about the game last night is that it's not that it was the worst result in the world. It's not that it was the worst performance in the world. It was that we just saw the limitations of these players. The limitations of a Scott McTominay, the limitations of an Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the limitations of a Jadon Sancho, the limitations of a Casemiro, the limitations of a Lindelof. That's my problem with this whole tour. It's not that we're playing badly. It's just that we know what's coming this season because we've seen this film before. There are limitations with these players. Scott McTominay will not suddenly become Kevin De Bruyne. And Casemiro's not going to become Rodri again. And Lindelof is not going to become John Stones. And Wan-Bissaka's not going to become Trent. Like, they're not those players. So if we are going into this season with the same thing, what does INEOS and Manchester United and Erik ten Hag want Manchester United fans to do? Become hypocrites? We've all said for years that these players aren't good enough. And now we're meant to be at the start of the season going, oh, it's going to be fine. Well, it's not going to be fine, is it? They're not going to be good enough. So we do need better. That is absolutely essential. So when I look at what's happened on the tour, and I did my match reaction last night, it has been a waste of time. But there has been a few positives. But it is only pre-season. But I think next week against Man City, if we did get turned over there, we can't just sit back and say it's pre-season, because that is the centrepiece of the start of a new Premier League season. And if you get beat 4 or 5-0 in that, you can't just say, well, it's only pre-season. We have to start showing something next week, now that we're going to get our proper players back, and we'll be, 6 days away from playing Fulham. So yeah, look, I mean, Beth asked a direct question about De Ligt, and Ten Hag said we've got options at centre-back. Some people are panicking about that, but politically, it's the right answer. You can't just stand there and say, I'm desperate for players when you might not get them. And you've got to go into a new season with those players that you might have to big up a little bit. So I understand that. But this is what the sporting director for Bayern Munich had to say about De Ligt. And I think this is a bit of a positive this morning. So Max Erbel asked about De Ligt and his imminent transfer to Manchester United. He said, I will comment on it, the reasons for him going to Manchester United, when the time comes. It's not the time yet. De Ligt has played very well here for 2 years, and that's why the fans like him. Nevertheless, you have to think about how you make decisions and also about how the boy feels himself. He's still a player at Bayern, and as long as he is, he will get our support. So I think that's a very honest and, revealing interview from Bayern's sporting director, Max Erbel. They're out in Seoul at the moment in Asia on their pre-season tour. That, despite some Bayern Munich fans not being happy, they have got their reasons as to why they're going to do this deal. And I think predominantly they need to sell to buy. They need to raise money themselves. And De Ligt wants to go. So I think that he's more than hinting there as to why they are willing to sell De Ligt. And look, I just think Manchester United have just got to get out there and start doing some business now. So Jim Radcliffe is selling himself as a lifelong Manchester United fan. Well, most of you are lifelong Man United fans. I'm a lifelong Manchester United fan. And when I watch Manchester United at the moment, I know what the problems are. So if I'm the owner of Manchester United on the footballing side, which Sir Jim is, I'm no way sitting there and going, things might be all right. Put a big bit of Bob Marley on a Sunday. Everything's going to be all right. No, it's not. Everything's going to be shite. It's not going to be all right because we've seen the movie before. All due respect, I've watched Maguire for years. I've watched Lindelof for years. I've watched McTominay for years. I've watched Wan-Bissaka for years. I've watched Sancho for years. I know what these... We've seen Eriksen now. Since that tackle by Andy Carroll, he's not the same player. We've seen this movie before. We can't keep polishing a turd. So it's time to go to work. It's time to go to work. And we have to clear out as many of those players as possible in the next week or two. Because if we start against Fulham with some of the players that have played on this tour, then they're not going to be concerned in the slightest. And Man City next week could hand us an absolute tonking. We've always done quite well against Man City and Haaland when Varane's played. Varane's not playing. So we've got to get set for this. We have to. And look, in relation to Mazraoui and De Ligt and Ugarte, as I said on the 8 o'clock show last night, they're waiting. They're waiting for these deals. It's not like, oh, will it happen or won't it happen? They are waiting sometimes weeks since we agreed personal terms with them. So I think, look, as I said, that's why I want to get your thoughts on where we are without the hoo-ha and overreaction, because there are concerns, 100%, but it's the same concerns we've had every summer transfer window. We're not getting the business that needs to be done quick enough. And importantly, we're not selling the players that need to be sold, because when them players go, they get replaced. And if they don't get replaced, then we're stuck with the same story again. That's my concern. Being beaten 3-0 by Liverpool, realistically, they probably deserve to win the game, but 3-0, I think we should have scored at least one. Yeah, I think they should have won that 2-1, which I would understand where we are in pre-season at the moment. Losing it 3-0 just comes down to individualism. Again, our number 6 was hopeless. I've said what I've said about Casemiro. He was hopeless. And the back four was very, very misfits, wasn't it? So, and we missed a few chances ourselves. So I'm not massively bothered. We beat Betis, we lost to Arsenal, and we lost to Liverpool. But none of this matters if we beat Fulham, and that's what it's going to be all about. But there is so much work to be done for that team, and I just think that when you've got players that you want to sign and they're not part of pre-season for different reasons, I can almost see the excuses already. I can see the excuses already. It will be like, if we get some bad results in September and October, there's a justifiable excuse to say, It wasn't the perfect pre-season. We didn't have a lot of our players in on time. And, lo and behold, it is Groundhog Day, says Vincent. It is, because we are without key players on pre-season. Some of them not our fault because they played in the Copa America or the Euros, but some of them we just not got the business done quick enough. Hi everyone, says Ray. I saw some good things from United. We're missing a centre forward. That's why we didn't score 2 or 3. We need our targets for better results, says Ray. Thank you, Ray. Hope you're doing well. Also, this man's work ethic is impeccable. 5 hours sleep, says Parker. Cody says, well, I hope everyone's feeling all right if you did watch the game and then you're up early this morning. Cody says, hi, Mark. Can't understand why we aren't going for Zubimendi, although he suits Ten Hag's style more than Ugarte. Is that down to price or difficulty? I think with Zubimendi, it probably comes down to price and difficulty. Like you say, getting him out of Sociedad isn't easy. INEOS need to get moving to prevent a bad start, says Daniel. Only thoughts are sell and buy is needed ASAP, says John. And we need 4 new players out of illness and injuries against Liverpool. They have to sort this out, or we have to have 50 players squad. That's from Nicholas. Losing will speed up the transfers, says Lee. And Jay says, keep Casemiro at 6. We came 8. Again, no point improving everything and not change midfield. Okay, Jay, thank you very much for that. I mean, look, I think we will see activity this week. It just depends how much of it is sufficient and inspirational enough to kickstart what needs to be a very good start to the season. I mean, look, I want Ten Hag to do well. I want Ten Hag to stay, but when I went to bed last night, I think my last tweet was about Wan-Bissaka. I just cannot understand why we played him for 90 minutes yesterday when we're trying to sell him to West Ham. It's absolutely incredible. It's like, as I said the other day, it's like trying to swim across a lake and before you jump in, you see the sign saying crocodiles live here. And then as you swim across and with your last gasp, you went, oh, that was unlucky. It's not unlucky. You know there's crocodiles in there. And we saw again with Fish, very serious injury. We know that people are picking up injuries. So why are you picking players in a meaningless friendly? What did we get out of Wan-Bissaka playing yesterday, by the way? What did we get out of that game? I mean, I know we haven't got a right back. Is that why he played? Because we haven't got a right back? That could fuck up your whole season if he picks up a bad injury and then you can't sell him. So there are still some things going on that you just think, nobody is Harry Potter. You can't predict that a player's not going to get injured in a game of football at the moment. So I thought that was very weird, but looks like we got away with it. There is a bit of concern about Wan-Bissaka. If he is genuinely injured, then, I'm disgusted. I'll hold reserve on who I'm disgusted at, but I'll be disgusted if Wan-Bissaka is injured and we can't sell him, because what a waste of time that would be. But that deal should happen. West Ham are very close to that, which will lead to Mazraoui coming in. So I think those 2 deals you can say are going to happen this week. With Ugarte, I think you've got to sell a midfielder, and the only midfielder that could be at the moment is Scott McTominay. But even yesterday, I just still get the sense that does Ten Hag actually want to sell him? Like, he's still throwing him on up front, and you can just imagine him going, we need Scotty as an option to throw on up front. Well, we need Ugarte because we haven't got a number 6. So, will we press the button on that, or are we going to go, let's just get on with Casemiro and see what happens at the back end of the window with Ugarte? I mean, there are a couple of options there. If they don't want to sell McTominay, they might just say, let's wait till the end of the window for Ugarte and start the season without him. If they do want Ugarte, then obviously you'd see McTominay going out this week. But I'm not convinced by that. I get the feeling we might just go, well, we've got Mainu coming back, let's start the season with Casemiro, which is just terrifying. I mean, he was so bad yesterday. He lost so many 50-50 duels. His passing was a disgrace. So, the warning signs are there. If they don't want to take heed of that, then, again, you've got to look at where the real blame is there. And De Ligt, I mean, I think with De Ligt, is there a centre-back being sold? There isn't even a centre-back being sold. So are we going to have to wait to sell a centre-back? I don't know. So I think Mazraoui is clearly going to happen. And hopefully De Ligt and Ugarte will happen. But if it's one out, one in, who's the centre-back that's actually leaving Manchester United? So we have to see activity this week. But if we don't, then against Man City and against Fulham, you're going to see Maguire and Martinez and Casemiro. And that three is like the Bermuda Triangle. You're going to lose points in there because it's just not going to work. So that has to change. And I think the enduring feeling I have this morning is not of, oh my God, it's the world's end. It's just monotony and tiredness. And not just because I was watching a game at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just tired of this shit, if I'm being honest. I'm really tired of a season ending. And I'd be interested to see how many of you feel like this. I'm really tired of the optimism at the end of a season where you go, surely this will be the summer where we sell Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Casemiro, McTominay, Eriksen, Sancho, where we sell all those players and we bring in 3 or 4 other players to really kickstart a new United. And again, it hasn't happened. You know, it's August the 4th and all those players are still here. And you go, oh, I'm not going anywhere, but at the end of the day, I've seen this movie before. I know what's going to happen. And you're always going to get people in the fan base who start, it is really draining, Keith. You're always going to get people in the fan base going, "I'll stop moaning. These are good players." But we've seen the movie before. And all your optimism will be replaced by where most of us are now by the middle of September when you're saying, we fucked up the transfer window, we should have sold all this lot. And then next May, we'll be in that position again where we're like, oh, we'll get rid of them this summer, and then we won't. And I can't believe these players are not only part of the squad, but potentially starting games for Manchester United over the next few weeks. It's ridiculously depressing and draining to see it. And there is nothing that a Sir David Brailsford or a Sir Jim Radcliffe or a Dan Ashworth can do to make that situation any more appealing, because we've been here longer than you. And we've seen these players longer than you, and you can't tell us that they're good enough because it's very obvious you want to sell them as well, but you can't. So, you know, I think for me, how I feel at the moment, it's got nothing to do with the tour. There is reason to be positive. You know, I think even Rashford played a lot better than he has done for about half an hour last night. Ahmad's been really good. We know about Amas and Collier. It's been good to see some of the younger players getting more experience. But beyond that, nobody's really grabbed the nettle, actually. But I'm just drained by, you know, the same shit. And look, you know, on Casemiro, just very, very quickly, he's at fault for the first goal. He shouldn't just turn his back on a tackle. And on the third goal, he doesn't track the runner. So if we've got the same issues as the end of last season, we're going to concede a lot of goals with him in the holding midfield position as well. So there's a lot that needs to be changed. Larry says it's a beautiful day. Somebody just said, what do you think about Mason Mount? Look, I don't think he's been bad in pre-season, but I don't think he's been good. I think he's been okay, and he needs to be more than that, I suppose. That's what I would say. I mean, I thought he did a lot better on the left wing than I thought he would, and he's going to have to be the sort of player that is willing to play in multiple positions, because he's not going to get Bruno's slot, he's not going to get Mainoo's slot, and quite rightly, and he's not really going to get a right wing or a left wing spot. So what Mount needs to do is be able to operate well in a number of positions, because that's the only way he's going to get minutes. I don't see what we bought him for. I don't see why we gave him the number 7 shirt. I still don't understand it. I want to understand it. I want him to do well. He was a very good player at Chelsea, but I can't look at that pre-season and go that he's grabbed the opportunity the way that Ahmad grabbed it, or the way Amas grabbed it, or the way Collier grabbed it. He was, you know, Mount's been part of the entire pre-season, and it's like, it's been pretty, you know, so, but it is pre-season, you know, maybe for him, it's about staying fit. Maybe he's been playing within himself a little bit to do that. And maybe the real work starts next week against Man City, where we might see a very different Mason Mount. I do think the overarching thing with Mason Mount is to stay fit. So many different injuries derailed him last year that, you know, I'm willing to just see how it goes. But you know, he's nowhere near the start of the Manchester United's best 11, is he? Like, he's just not in it. And that, to me, is a concern for a player of his pedigree. And I'm still a little bit confused as to where he's going to fit in at United. But the longer he stays fit, the better. I think that's what I'd say about Mount. Liam says that selling Ligt is a clear demonstration of the ruthlessness of big clubs right in front of our eyes of what we need to do. It's the Glazers' fault, though, says Liam. Thank you. Saber says Maguire, Lindelof and Eriksen have got 1 year left on their contracts. If we can't sell them now, they'll go next year. Just some positivity for you all, says Saber. Yeah, I think you're right on that. I mean, McTominay's got the option of another year, but you wouldn't expect Manchester United. So they needed that. It's a big, you know what that is? It's a big 8 point, an 8 plug. It's got 8 plug points on it. So I've got my new stand-up desk, and I want it to all be nice and tidy because it's got a little trench for your cables at the back. But I need an 8 plug socket. So there we go. Bit like Man United needs some transfers. If we're being brutally honest, says Jay, this summer transfer window. Oh, here we go. Here we go. This could be comment of the morning. If we are being brutally honest, I'll show you the stand-up desk in a moment in case you didn't do the watch along last night. Jay Rayner says, if we're being brutally honest, this summer transfer window has been a shower of shit. If you compare to other clubs' new owners' first window. I mean. Yeah, I mean, I've never looked at it like that, Jay. For a first summer transfer window of new owners, has it been that good? Is that an interesting way of looking at it? I mean, I've never thought of it like that because it's year 3 with Ten Hag. I've never really thought about it that this is like this is a new football ownership. I know they don't own the football club, but a big deal has been made of the fact that INEOS own the football side of things. So for a new ownership, I mean, yeah, maybe look, it might kickstart them to do some stuff. I'm all up for anything that might give INEOS a bit of a kick up the backside. I still think we can end up having a good summer transfer window, but they've got to be deducted points because the preparation's not great. Some of these, realistically, Ugarte, Ligt would never have been training with Man United. I mean, Xerxes not trained with Man United yet. He won't do till Tuesday. But I would deduct points because Ugarte and Ligt are not training with Man United on Tuesday, and they should be. I understand why not getting the deals done before Tuesday because they won't be training with us, but they're not going to be training with us on Tuesday. So to me, that's a failure in the sense that they haven't got these deals done quick enough again. So, yeah, I'd deduct them on that. I still think they can have a good window, but I think Jay probably makes quite a fair point. For a first summer transfer window for INEOS, it's not been as good as we would have hoped. There are mitigating circumstances. Of course, there is absolutely no way that they want to keep Casemiro, but they can't get rid of him. I think there are excuses, but we're Manchester United. Sometimes excuses ain't enough. Hamad, welcome to Members Club. 7-inch Destroyer says, I still don't see any changes under INEOS. Rooney says 2 centre-backs have left, just 1 in so far. Thank you very much. Real Madrid genius is getting rid of when they did, says JM. Can you call me a prat? It's my birthday, says Stuart. You're a prat. And Brandon Lopez says, if you could have one transfer for free, what player do you think would benefit us the most in Ten Hag's system? I mean, I'd probably take someone like Rodri, mate, to be honest. Best holding midfielder in the game. Takes the ball off the back four. We desperately need somebody who can do that. I think there's a good point from Lee as well about losing last night might speed up transfers. I certainly think we do need a bit of movement. And look, I don't actually think Mazraoui will happen, but it's not going to be a game changer for Man City or the Fulham game because we've got Delo and we've got Luke Shaw. So yeah, I think that's where we are with that. Romano's tweeted about the De Ligt situation, but it's a repeat of what Pletty said. Bayern have always asked for 50 million euros for De Ligt. Max Eberl has said that, of course, all parties have got to be happy for the deal to happen. So, yeah, I think we're already aware of that. And as I said, Max Eberl has said they will comment on the reasons De Ligt's leaving if and when that deal is completed. Sanil says, as much as I want McTominay to be sold, I can bet a fortune on Ten Hag won't let him leave, expecting him to score sudden goals, ignoring his overall crap, says Sanil. Well, Robert McCormack said it plenty of times. I'd agree with you. There is something about McTominay that endures himself to many Manchester United managers. Do they understand what Man United's all about? I suppose might be the bigger question, because, McTominay offered nothing last night. Absolutely nothing. There was a couple of dribbles with the ball. I think he got fouled on one of them, and he should have scored. But nobody's dismissing the fact that he can find himself in positions where he can score goals. But a game goes on for about 110 minutes these days. You can't just be the guy in the box who just scores goals. Where's the tackles? Where's the marking? Where's the passing? There needs to, if you're going to play for Manchester City, you've got to be more than that. And Arsenal and Liverpool. So we can't just carry a player that can pop up in the box and score a goal. You need to be way more than that at this level. INEOS took over a very poorly run club, says Red since 1975. They're trying to undo a 10-year mess in 5 minutes. You get the foundations right first, then you build. Yeah, as I said, Red since 1975. Mitigating circumstances, for me, lead to a situation where I am frustrated and it is draining. But of course, I understand some of it as well. But that doesn't. Where I will be a little bit critical is that Ugarte, De Ligt, and Mazraoui are personal terms agreed. Like, you've got to get those deals done. I understand other aspects where we might not be doing anything or we can't remove players, but we've agreed personal team terms on players that everybody knows we want. So just get them done. It's embarrassing to be sat there knowing that those 3 players are waiting for us to come to the club and we can't work a situation to get them. That's the problem. It's a very public arena where we know we want De Ligt, we know we want Ugarte, and we know we want Mazraoui, and we're sat there not doing it, not getting them done. So there needs to be some movement around those players. I think multiple deals will be done this week, says Gia. I hope so, mate. Welcome to the Members Club. Lionel, you're an absolute legend. Would you risk a point deduction in favouring of rebuilding the squad faster, says Sam? Well, it's an irrelevance, Sam, because we wouldn't get a points deduction because we're miles off an FFP points deduction. The problem is we haven't got the money to spend. FFP and revenue are completely different things. There's been times over the last 10 years where Spurs could have easily spent £200 million in a summer because they were FFP compliant, but they didn't have £200 million to spend. So I think some people are getting confused here, thinking that we're not spending because of FFP. We're not spending because we haven't got the cash flow. We haven't actually got the cash. We could sign De Ligt, Mazraoui and Ugarte tomorrow and not sell anybody and not get in trouble with FFP. We just haven't got the cash flow to do it. So FFP is not the reason we're not signing players. It's cash flow. We haven't got the 50 million to give to Bayern Munich. So we need to sell players or we need to do an instalment deal that allows us to do it. How long do these players have left on their contracts, is Anders? Casemiro and Sancho have got quite a significant period of time on their contracts. Thank you very much, though. And Hamad, welcome to the Members Club. Congratulations on the books, says Hamad. How do you think we're lining up for the game against City? De Ligt has to be done ASAP. Honestly, even if we sign De Ligt, Ugarte and Mazraoui tomorrow, they won't start against Man City. I don't think Martinez will play 90 minutes against Man City. I don't think Bruno will play 90 minutes. Or maybe Bruno will. But a lot of the players that are coming back this week won't play 90 minutes against Man City anyway because it's their first game of the season. Avanash says, would you hypothetically trade Mount for Ugarte? Look, you know what? I've had 5 hours sleep. I think the tour has been massively uninspiring on the pitch. And it's very easy in that arena of tiredness and drained and, uninspired to just say something stupid like I'd sell Mount now or I'd sell Sancho or whoever. I think in the cold light of day, there needs to be some reflection. You do need to have squad players. I wouldn't be selling Mason Mount after a bad injury season. He's got to have a big season this year. But, you know, Onana was getting a lot of stick last night. It's a big season for Onana. It's a big season for Rashford. I mean, look, you know, the contrasts are real. Like, Mount's done okay on pre-season tour. That's not good enough for some. Onana's been a bit ropey. Oh, he's load of shit. Rashford's shown a couple of good moves and he's back. You know, the bottom line is none of those statements are true. If you're deciding that Onana's shit off pre-season and Rashford's back off pre-season and Mount's going to be on the bench all season off pre-season, you've completely misread the room. Marcus Rashford could have another shit season. Onana could be absolutely world class, and Mount might be our starting number 8 by Christmas. Pre-season is literally what it is. It's about getting fitness in your legs and preparing yourself for the real games. And when you're playing a real game, you might not get the space to do what Rashford was doing yesterday. In the real game, Mount's decision making might be sharper because he has, you know, he's got to be quicker. So, you know, with people like Martinez, Luke Shaw, Dalot, and maybe the Ligt in front of him, we might really start to see what Onana's like as a ball playing goalkeeper. So I'm not going to judge anybody until Fulham. But if we lose to Fulham, that is when the shit will really start. That is when you will get your radio stations and your ex-players and your Ten Hag outers screaming and shouting. And that is when the pressure will start. So that is where we've got to focus on, because that's what worries me, is when you've seen this movie before and you still go back into it expecting a different outcome. We're only going to get different outcomes if we've got a different story to tell. And the story we're telling at the moment is we can't play decent football with these players that we have at the moment. And the club need to see that. And surely they do see that. I mean, we've got enough technical people at the football club now. Jay says, I'd be more sympathetic with INEOS if we had been told ins and outs of what owning the football side of things really meant. I've honestly had enough. And Tomo says, Amrabat, Ligt, Mazraoui, Ugarte still need more. I mean, look, on Amrabat, Tomo, there's another update this morning on Amrabat that he's not training with Fiorentina and he's doing individual training sessions, waiting for a move to Manchester United. And I'm like, this is exactly what happened last year. Exactly what happened last year. And Amrabat came to Man United. He was miles behind everybody else. He picked up an injury and didn't play well until the back end of the season. And we're going to rinse and repeat that. He's not had a pre-season again. He's on a bloody exercise bike doing shuttle runs. Like, that's not a pre-season. And he ain't good enough for us to go, don't bother having a pre-season. I mean, Amrabat, by very definition, is a divisive player as to whether we should sign him or not. And it's just weird. I find some of what Man United have done weird, if I'm being completely honest, this summer transfer window. Because I'm just going to demonstrate the stand-up desk. Yeah, I find it very weird what Manchester United have done this summer transfer window, because, you know, Amrabat is by himself a very up and down player, and he's, you know, are we signing him? Are we not signing him? There are others in that situation as well. You know, picking Wan-Bissaka for as long as we did yesterday, I thought was silly as well. Vincent says, we must get 3 transfers done this week. Simple as that. We need these players in ASAP. Thank you, Vincent. Catton says, no excuses. INEOS knew what they were doing when they bought 27% of United. And Spooky says, I wish that United board had more of a sense of urgency with signings. Yesterday's game shows that the squad needs improvement. Look, I appreciate everybody what they're saying this morning. I completely agree with you. I think where I am this morning and where a lot of you are this morning is we don't have to take a massive note of pre-season. We can sweep it under the carpet. We have got a lot of our key players coming back in the next 48 hours. And really, the pre-season starts and ends with Manchester City, where we need to play a lot better ahead of that Friday night game against Fulham. I agree with that. I think everybody's there. But supplementary to that, we've now got to go out and do some transfer business, and we can't just sit back with what we've got and pretend that it's good enough, because quite simply it's not. So whether how's the week going to pan out? look, Manchester United and most of our CEO, our sporting director are flying back from North Carolina now. So do I expect Man United to do anything on a Sunday? It's not impossible, but probably not. But from tomorrow, I think you've got, it's got to be a really big week for Manchester United. Can we go and do 2 or 3 deals by Wednesday? Very unlikely. It's not impossible, but very unlikely. But that's what they've got to do. I mean, when I look at the week ahead, you've got to sell McTominay and Wan-Bissaka, and you've got to buy Ugarte, Mazraoui and Ligt. So you've got to do 5 deals in probably 3 days. That's if you want them to play in the Community Shield, which I don't think any of them are going to do anyway. So, but if we don't sign Ligt or Ugarte before Thursday, they're not going to play against Fulham the following Friday, a week following Friday. So we've got to move quicker. Have to move quicker. Due patience in waking this sleeping giant is needed, says Lionel. 15 years of septic laziness by the Glazers is not going to be fixed overnight, but let's not relent on our efforts towards accountability. I think you've made a great point. The bigger picture is it's going to take a long time, but there are levels to my standing desk. There are levels to where we are at the moment. And yes, we all know that there's been at least 10 years of decay, and you're not going to turn that around in one summer transfer window. Of course not. But on a smaller level, accountability must be attributed to the current leadership team. When De Ligt's been waiting for us for 5 weeks, Ugarte's been waiting us for 4 weeks. Like, that is not acceptable when we're playing Fulham in 12 days and we've got 2 players that should be starting that game that we could have had in 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that is where I would say the bigger picture is we're fully aware of some of the problems, and it's going to take time under INEOS, of course. But when it comes to Ugarte and De Ligt, INEOS have got to take accountability. We can't keep making excuses. Those 2 players need to be Man United players yesterday. Go and get them today. Because, you know what? There are a lot of things we can blame the Glazers for. Of course there is. But we can't keep using the Glazers as a security blanket for INEOS. They need some accountability. I said this before. When they do well, they'll get praise, and hopefully they'll do a hell of a lot good. But we're not doing ourselves any favours as a football club if we keep saying, well, it's not their fault, it's the Glazers' fault. Like, yeah, most of the time that's right. But whose fault is it that De Ligt's not a Man United player 5 weeks after doing personal terms? Whose fault is it that Ugarte is not a Man United player? Whose fault is it that Casemiro's still our starting 6? Whose fault is it that Maguire's going to start against Fulham with Martinez? That's not the Glazers' fault. INEOS have had all summer to sort this out. So, yes, overarchingly, the Glazers are to blame. And I, like many of you, am behind INEOS, and I believe they will get us there. But they do need to take some accountability, because whether you own Manchester United, Manchester City, Newcastle, as an owner, you can't just get a free ride. Demand and expectation needs to be there. And they've got a job to do. And they can't just, decide that, we're going to do it at our own pace. This is Manchester United. It's not Nice. You didn't really achieve anything at Nice. So let's not pretend that you've got a magic wand. There is accountability. There is not total trust. I think there's patience. I think there's belief. And I think there is hope. But we can't be negligible. We can't just blindly trust INEOS, because they don't actually have a pedigree in football. So they do need a little bit of a kick up the arse. And I believe and hope, maybe hope more, that this week they'll do that. Because if we can come out of this week with Ugarte, Mazraoui and De Ligt, suddenly the profile of the season changes completely, in my opinion. Lionel's just gifted 10 memberships. You're a legend. Thank you very much for that. And JM says, I don't get the space between the midfield and the defence. I get we don't have the players yet, but chooses between high line or low block. Can't do both, says JM. Well, you can. You can't just, you can't just park the bus. That would be a complete and utter waste of time. NAU says, I think we'll get our bum smacked against Fulham. And I think we've caught up with those as well. Nam says, you lot like mourning too much. You can't spell, mate. Ashish says, do you think we hired a Rude as a contingency with Ten Hag gets the sack? I feel it could be the same feeling as Ollie, old player, happy dressing room, says Ashish. No, I think that's bollocks. And I think if you're a responsible Manchester United fan, you've got to be, a little bit wiser than that. It's so lazy. It's the sort of thing I'd expect to see in the Manchester Evening News. Ruud van Nistelrooy comes in because he's going to replace Ten Hag. How about Ruud van Nistelrooy comes in because Ten Hag wanted Van Persie a year ago, couldn't get him, and clearly wanted to bring in an ex-Man United player who was Dutch, who, would be respected by the players and provide a bridge between him and the players. I think that's logically the most important thing. I also think that, I haven't brought it into a show, but Dwight Yorke said that. And basically, most of what Dwight Yorke says is total and utter shit. So if you want to, sort of agree with Dwight Yorke on football opinion, then, you're coming across as a bit of an idiot. I'm not saying that Ruud van Nistelrooy won't be a future manager of Manchester United, but there's absolutely no way he's been brought into this football club to succeed Ten Hag. Way too much money has been spent on Ten Hag. And what about Rennie, who's been brought in as well? No, I think we've changed the coaching for a reason. And I'm not, I'm genuinely not interested or concerned about the coaching setup. For the same reason, I'm not genuinely concerned about the result last night. I mean, I think Liverpool won the league and they lost every pre-season game that season. Like, we've had really good pre-seasons and then been shit at the start. Pre-season to me is about, it's like putting your kit on. Oh, well, I put my shorts on the wrong way, I'll just change them round. It's not until the proper whistle starts, it doesn't matter. But what does matter is that we can see concerns, we can predict problems that aren't there in pre-season that will happen in the real season because we've seen this film before. We need to change the players and we need to get some players in, and that's not fans being spoilt and greedy. That's fans knowing the score 100%. Anyway, look, Lionel's gifted 10 memberships. He's a legend. Thanks, everybody, this morning. I mean, look, we're ready to go. I hope we can get some here we goes and some signings. Whether it will be today or not, I don't know. But we're ready to go for it on the United stand. I just want to thank everybody who's been involved over the States tour. I think Beth and Ryan have done a fantastic job. Beth, again, if you check out Twitter, asking a really good question of Ten Hag after the game. And we got Bennett on as well. It's been a really, really good really good tour for the United stand. So thanks everyone who got involved in that, whether it's in the live chat or over there. But the real work starts now. And Manchester United certainly need to go to work. And, can we just say it for what it is? Let's stop being sensitive. We need to clear out shit and bring in new players. And if that shit's sensitive, then maybe you shouldn't have stunk out the place for the last couple of years. You had your chance. You've been shit. You need to go. We need new players. It's competitive sport. Let's get on with it. Speak to you in a bit. Take care. And thanks for watching.